percentage valued equity.
The content. We're recording.
Okay, everybody, can you hear me? Are we coming across? Fabulous. Okay, thank you everyone for the delay. I'm sorry about that. Took me a little while to get this thing to work. It was jumping from one meeting to the next. So welcome. Thank you so much for being here today. And it's great to have the meeting being delayed. I'm kind of trying to get myself on track here. So today we'll be talking about the financial exploitation of older Vermonters. And this has come up quite a bit in our committee work over the years, and then also with other representatives when I sent out the meeting announcement, have said that they've had issues with their constituents around this topic. So I think it's something that we should be trying to figure out some solutions for, spread some information around how to best educate our community about these predators that are coming after older Vermonters. So thanks all for being here. And so I've got a couple of guests today, and we'll also have Attorney General Clark coming in a little bit later. I had originally, is Senator Williams online here? Okay. I talked to Senator Williams. He may pop in later. He's got a bill that he's been working on that he had asked that he would like to talk about here at the caucus today. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Chris Delia, who's the president or executive director of the Vermont Bankers Association, who is coming here today with some information about what banks and financial institutions are doing around the financial exploitation. So thanks for being here today, Chris.
Great. Thanks, Dan. Good to see you folks on the screen and the folks in the room. Appreciate the opportunity to come and visit with you today. So Dan and I briefly had a conversation about this as I was making my way around the state last fall, visiting with some of our banks and visiting with some legislators, and we got talking about this subject. And as Joe knows from Adult Protective Services, we've been focused on this for a while, but having better communication and much stronger partnership with the folks at APS these days than what we've had in the past. So when I shared with Dan some of the comments I was getting back from my bankers, he thought it would be a great idea to come in and visit with you folks and just tell you what we're seeing and tell you what we have available for information if you wanted to share it with your constituents out there. So it seems over the past 8 months to a year, we've just seen a really tremendous increase of elder fraud activity going on in the marketplace. And it's not just those who are vulnerable elders, it's across the board. We're also seeing folks who are not elders who are falling into some of these scams by the perpetrators out there. And I'll just give you a few examples of what we're seeing and then talk a little bit about our work with APS and then what we can share with you. So it doesn't really matter where you go around the state, the stories are somewhat similar. It's, the grandson scam where they're across the border in Canada and the perpetrator is saying, look, I'm your grandson, I'm in jail. I need, X amount of dollars for bail. Can you send it to me right away? And, the person goes into the bank and we have a conversation with them and say, have you called your grandson? Well, no, but I know he's across the border in jail. And I said, well, just call your grandson, and probably he's not. So we have conversations about that. We've seen individuals who are falling prey to the romance scams. This has been going on for quite a while, but it seems to be at a new level now. It's the woman in Bennington who swears she's in a romance with the drummer of the band Chicago and needs to send money, or it's the romance scam about, hey, let's get together, but I don't have enough money for the airfare, so can you wire me some money? Those types of things. Then we see the scams where the perpetrator is actually on the phone with the bank customer. And this has happened on several occasions where the customer is in the car at the bank parking lot, they're having a conversation. Customer comes in and wants to conduct a transaction. The banker will have a conversation with them. Person leaves, goes out to their car and has, again, a phone conversation with the perpetrator. And they're coaching them every step of the way, how to respond to the questions of the bank. And, sometimes we're able to talk them off the ledge and other times we're not. It's their money. And ultimately, if they want to take it out, they can. And we've had folks who have withdrawn, $10,000, $20,000 on some of these schemes, even more over a period of time. And I've had a few banks say, we're going to close your account. We've tried to talk to you about this. We've tried to explain that it's a scam. And the bank said, we just can't be a part of it anymore. And they'll go on to the next institution and figure out a way to get the money. Then we've seen the crypto ATM scam, where the customer gets an email. It looks like it's from their bank, and the customer has a problem with their account, at least according to the email. So in order to rectify that, go to your bank, withdraw, in one case, $9,000, go across to Keene, New Hampshire, deposit it into a crypto ATM, and the money is gone forever. And we've seen some of those cases. And then a final example would be, I'll give you two more examples. One is a woman who got an email from what she thought was her bank, problem with your account. She made a phone call to the number in the email. She actually granted the person on the other line access to her bank account. And they were able to cleverly move money around in her accounts, make it look like there was a shortfall in money. And she went to the bank and, quickly discovered all of the money was there. But in the meantime, the perpetrators had implanted a malware on her system. And banks work with her to suggest where she could go and get her computer cleaned up and scrubbed to get the malware off. And then finally, a situation that happened to a young man, 39 years old. He thought he was in a relationship with a woman who was in the military. They'd never actually met. Everything was conducted via text. And it was very clear in the scam. She made it very clear, or whoever the perpetrator was, I should say, made it clear that she was in covert operations, so contact would be limited. She explained she had a couple of children. And he got to a point where he sent her, or the perpetrator, $30,000, was ready to buy a piece of property with her, was ready to adopt the kids, and none of it was real. So these things are happening at a much higher level these days. Switching gears to working with APS, we, knowing the APS bill that passed last year, Joe and I and John Gordon from APS have been working together over the last few months. I attended an Adult Protective Services conference down in Boston. And what we're trying to do is figure out a more proactive way to work together to get at the heart of these scams that are out there. And more importantly, help APS with their investigative activities that are going on. So if somebody brings a case to them and they want to follow the money trail, typically that involves a bank. So we've been sharing some information with their office as to who the primary contacts are at our financial institutions, who we can work with at APS, standardizing documentation requests, et cetera. So we're moving forward with that. The final thing I'll share with you, and we can make this available to anybody who's interested. We work closely with the American Bankers Association. That's our national trade group down in Washington. They've done quite a bit in the elder fraud arena, working with a national organization for APS across the country, working closely with AARP and the bank educational programs that are going on out there, which some of our folks are a part of. I should say we train all the time on these scams, so we're not just reliant on AARP. But one of the things that the American Bankers has put together are these one-pagers that outlines some of the more prevalent scams that are out there. And I talked to Dan about this, and I communicated with ABA and said, look, is this available to the general public? And they said very much so. So if folks have an interest, I can make some of these one-pagers available to you. and you can share it with your constituents, whether you're legislators or other folks. They're very up to date. They're very timely. They're very easy to read. And my thought behind it is probably seeing and hearing this information from multiple sources may begin to sink in for folks because they swear they're in that relationship where they swear the grandson's in trouble. But when you start to create this awareness again from multiple resources, hopefully over time, people begin to realize that, yeah, they really are being taken advantage of. So let me stop there. Happy to take any questions you may have. If not, turn it back to Dan and listen to the rest.
So the information that you have, you can send that to me. Would I be able to, able to contact you directly, or do you want to just send it to me and I can put it out to the caucus?
Either way, I can send it to Dan and he can communicate with me. Or my email address is V as in Victor, T as in Tom, banker @sover.net, SOVER.net. And you can send me an email and more than happy to respond and get that stuff out to you.
Great. And we'll share that email address in our minutes for the meeting. I actually have a minute taker here today. Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. So we'll make sure we get that information out. Appreciate that. And then also in the chat, that Jason from Dale said that he got some brochures from DFR that he's distributed out to the area agencies on aging to be able to get out along with the Meals on Wheels program. So, you know, I think collectively we can all work together to make sure our communities know about these scams, and hopefully we can brand a couple of them. That would be wonderful.
Right.
So I also invited Sheriff Roger Marcoux from the Lamoille County Sheriffs to join us today. Really appreciate you being here, Sheriff Marcoux. And I just thought it would be good to have a law enforcement perspective into the mix, just to talk about what you've seen, and, you know, if somebody is seeing this happen, especially locally. You know, we talked earlier as we were waiting for the people that were in the room before us about there's even local scams, not necessarily, you know, someone from Nigeria, but, you know, someone right from the same community who's financially exploiting, and what are the best steps to kind of, you know, help them stop it from happening, first of all, and then make sure that person's held accountable. So I'll turn it over to you, Roger. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for the invitation, Dan, and good morning, everybody. My name is Roger Marcoux, Lamoille County Sheriff. I've been in law enforcement with the between the federal law enforcement and local for 44 years. And I appreciate being here today. I'm a little, I'm an older law enforcement official. I'm 65 years old. So this is very near and dear to my heart as I see people my age and older people continuously calling the office with these new scams that people are trying to get into. And the key here is that people are calling us. So, and I think that's the key to all of this, is to get people that are approached, we can get them to take a breath and then call. I don't care if they call their church, the religious community, if we can train people to take a breath, call somebody else, because if it's too good to be true, it probably is. But people desperately want to believe what they're hearing. So it takes a lot of support from the rest of us. But I also had some scenarios here that I've experienced, you know, in my time at the Sheriff's Department. But I wanted to maybe wing it here a little bit. And what is it that scammers, how is it that they're gaining confidence from the, you know, our elderly folks out there and other people? And I kind of took a stab at 4 different things that really scammers kind of key on and that are very important to our citizens there. One is obviously family. Anything to do with family is something that people can key on. Another one is health. People are very, very concerned about their health and being able to not only be healthy, but to pay for their health. Finances, obviously. And the last one is loneliness. We deal with a lot of people that have lost a partner or a spouse, and they're very, very lonely. So the bad guys out there know, bad guys and gals know that these are keys, and they're experts at starting a cold conversation, extracting information, and then keeping that conversation going. And I'll tell you something that happened to my mother, who is in Texas, so hopefully she's not going to be hearing me talk about this, but it was the grandson injured thing. So she gets a call and from somebody who is supposed to be her grandson, my nephew. And the call is very weak, and they do this on purpose. So she's saying, who is this? And then she mentions the grandson's name. So they know the name already. So they run with that. Says, it doesn't really sound like you. So they go with, well, I've been in an accident and my nose was broken, so I can't really talk well. Oh, that explains that. And they keep going. So my mother, who has two sons that are in law enforcement and two grandsons that are in law enforcement, sends $3,000 to Beirut, Lebanon to get my grandson out of problems. So, fortunately, I got an immediate call from, and the grandson that was hurt was a police officer in a neighboring town that had just worked a shift the night before. So it happens to everybody, but these people are experts. They're much better at interrogating and getting information than we are as police. So, somehow we have to deal with people's insecurities and what have you, and get the message out there that you need to really slow down before you take that next step. I'm glad to hear Chris saying that, the bank, we work closely with our banks in our local areas. They're very helpful. I believe that the federal government dealt with Western Union, which was instead of going to a bank where people care about you and may know you, she's going to, in this particular case with my mom, she's 80 some odd years old. In the middle of the winter, she gets in a car. She never goes out, makes her way to a Western Union at a local grocery store. And nobody asks any questions. That money's gone. We were able to fight with Western Union and get most of that money back. So, and that's an anomaly, I'm sure. So, but I think that's the key is the continued education of our elderly folks. And again, I'm dealing with a person right now, 73 years old, lost his wife a few years ago. I know this person very well and told me, I've been going on this dating site, Tinder, and I met this wonderful woman from somewhere in a city in New England. And we just had the greatest conversations. And I said, oh, yeah. And he said, she's much younger than I am. I said, oh, is that right? You're 73. How old is she? She says, well, she's 35. Is that right? And said, but I know it's the real thing because she sent pictures of her to me, and I've sent pictures of me to her, and she's still interested. She thought I was much younger. So, and I said, and what does she do for work? Well, she's an actuarialist. I don't say that correctly, Chris, but for cryptocurrency. So he's already started to send a little bit of money, and he's making money on that. Desperately wants to believe that that's true, but this is another scam. So with that, I'll turn it back over and again, appreciate being part of this conversation and want to be a help if I can.
Yeah, thank you so much. And, we also, Yeah, so it's important that we work together to get the word out. I don't know if anyone online has any comments of how we can, do a good job of getting the word out, different ideas. I mean, obviously through Meals on Wheels and our case managers at our area agencies on aging. I think it's got to come from both sides. It's good to hear that there is our financial institutions are really interested in making sure this doesn't happen, as well as law enforcement being part of the mix. Does anybody have any ideas on how we can help get the word out? Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Linda Bowden. I am with AARP Vermont. And one of the things that we've had really good success with, in addition to what Chris was saying about the flyers that the bankers have been putting into the banks, which has been fantastic, we also have a team of volunteers that go around the state and give seminars on fraud, and this is free. And we have a fraud team, so folks can reach out to us. And an example of that was recently there was a Walmart store that had contacted us that wanted to talk to some of their employees. And so we had given a fraud presentation there. And it was interesting because right afterwards, one of the checkout people had someone come up and want to purchase a whole bunch of the gift cards, which is what a lot of the scammers are looking for, because they could get easy cash and it's not traceable. And so she had questioned this person and determined that it was a fraud. So right there, as our educators were leaving, there was a case where it was taken care of. One of the things that I put into the chat is the AARP fraud hotline. And this is manned 24/7 by volunteers to help people who may have questions or may have had fraudulent situations having occurred. So just want to make that as a number that people might want to jot down in case they need to talk to somebody about it. So I just wanted to offer that to the caucus here as far as different ways that folks can reach out.
Yeah, very helpful. Thank you. And I know even people just looking for computer help end up get kind of jammed up in this. We were talking about before. My dad calls me up all the time. He's like, "Hey, my printer won't print." And one day he wanted to get something to print, so he went online and he typed in computer help, and it was actually a scam. They did help him get it to print, but they also were racking his credit card up every chance they could with thousands of dollars. And, so they had access to his computer that I had to figure out how to get out of there. So now try to figure out how to take his phone calls and make sure he can print. Yeah, so it is good that we're hearing about all the different resources. So thank you for sharing that about AARP. Yeah, go ahead.
Dan, I have to be in committee. I just want to, we've had Chris in our committee recently and seeing Roger here. I'd like if you could share some of this information, and I could put a piece in the Stowe Reporter that try to do like a monthly recap of some issues that may be of importance to constituents. So I'll communicate with you.
Yeah, that's perfect. And I also saw in the chat that Joshua, was saying, is there some PSAs? And maybe there's something through the banking folks that's kind of a PSA that we can amplify in our local columns or get out in the media around financial exploitation. So,
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right, so I did invite Attorney General Clark. She said that she had she was going to be a little bit late, so we're just going to take a break from this for now. I see we've been joined by Senator Williams, who wanted to just give a quick overview of some legislation that he's working on. And I think that's great. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. And I'll turn the floor over to you for a few minutes here. Thank you.
So I'm Senator Terry Williams. I'm from the Rutland District. And this bill is S97, and it's been around a while. This is the second biennium. Actually, it was introduced 3 years ago by Senator Cheryl Hooker for the same constituent. And he grows frustrated because it doesn't move. And I get probably 15 emails from him a week wanting to change it. Well, everybody knows once it's in a bill, you can't change it except in committee. Well, it went to, I'm on the Health and Welfare Committee, and I introduced it last year, and they referred it to the Judiciary Committee where it sits right now. So I'm just going to go over the subject is guardianship proceedings, adult guardianship, and the statement of purpose. As introduced, this bill proposes to provide the probate division of the Superior Court with jurisdiction over guardianship proceedings for individuals with developmental disabilities, and to establish rules for these and other guardianship proceedings in the probate division. Now, there's two different titles that pertain to guardianship. Title 14, which is the probate, and Title 18, which is in the family court. And true to form, there are 15 differences between the two titles. And a little background, my constituent has a daughter with developmental disabilities, and she was granted guardianship by Dale. And then she was allowed to, once her family realized that they could identify a voluntary guardian, the parents became her guardian. She went to high school. She went to driver's education, has her driver's license. She graduated from high school, and now she's in the workforce. So she's not as disabled developmentally as some may be, but the point of my coming here today is that it's not just, it just doesn't apply to children with developmental disabilities. The same thing can happen to any of us in here at any time. The reason that the constituent wants the bill or the responsibility transferred to the probate is because the probate system has a lot more safeguards in there that ensures that the individual under the guardianship will have more rights. I'll give you an example. If somebody is put in the involuntary guardianship and then is granted a voluntary guardianship, they go through all of the provisions of that guardianship. She got her license, she got her driver's license, she went to high school and graduated. But now because of the public safety issues, she and her parents want her to be able to get a firearm to protect herself because she's out in the public. Under Title 18, she's not entitled to do that. So, and there are other differences between it, but so what I'm trying to do is sit down with Senator Sears, who is the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and Senator Lyons said she'll go in with me because I'm really not well known because this is only my second year, and we can sit down and explain why my constituents wants these. We don't care if the jurisdiction falls under Title 14 or Title 18, as long as the provisions in Title 14 go to whichever, to Title 18 if that's the transfer. So, and then, Dale has, if Dale takes on the guardianship, right now, there's 600 people under Dale's guardianship. If I become mentally disabled because of a stroke or whatever, Dale will pick up the responsibility of taking care of me I think it's under Medicaid. But if I inherit a house, then Dale is going to end up being be responsible and get the benefit of having that that asset. So that's about it. It's going to be referred to as the Adult Guardianship Equity Act is what we're calling it.
Okay.
And hopefully it's going to move through.
Yeah, and thank you. This is really helpful, and I hope we see some movement on that. We've talked a lot in our Human Services Committee in the House about just how do individuals who are caring for a child who has developmental disabilities as they age, what is the long-term plan and what does that look like? And so I think we'll be talking more about that, coming up with some different housing models and how that individual is cared for after their parents pass away. So definitely going to be a topic also in the House on this. So
Yeah.
I can see some parallels there that maybe there's some stuff we can do together on it. For
Good.
sure.
My constituent has done his research.
All right.
And he's not happy with courts. He's been all the way to the Supreme Court with this.
Wow.
State Supreme Court.
Wow.
And he's actually just emailed me. He's found a provision that maybe the state of Vermont is not in compliance with the ADA. The adults with disabilities act, Americans with Disabilities. I don't know that. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to get into that. But the bill is what the bill is.
Yep.
And unless it gets amended, unless it gets taken up,
Right.
number one, and then if it gets amended in committee, he certainly has heightened the awareness of it.
Yeah, for sure. Great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, and definitely good luck. Does anyone have online have anything they would like to share? Hang on. I can't see that far away, but I see someone raising your hand. Please go ahead. I think it was Joanne first and then Charlie. Let's go, Joanne. Thanks
Okay,
for being here.
That's my pleasure. Just wondering regarding this, Title 14 and Title 18 discrepancies. I'm sure you've asked, I'm sure the legislator has asked for input from the Vermont Bar Association, true?
I'm not sure.
Because you
Oh, no.
need to, because
Okay.
we're the ones that go to court to represent involuntary guardian designations and things like that. And that would be good to know how these updates and changes in the law will affect the practice of the law.
Right,
That's
and
all.
should the bill get taken up, we definitely bring in witnesses from both the courts as well as anybody who's an interested party. I'm sure Dale would be at the table as the bill would be discussed in the committee setting for sure.
Great, thank you.
Great. Hey, welcome. Attorney General Clark has joined us, so thank you for being here. I appreciate you coming in and taking the time to talk to us. I'll let you get settled in here, but
Where would you like me to sit?
anywhere here,
Okay.
there. So we've been having a discussion around the financial exploitation of older Vermonters. And just think it would be great to have your input on what's going on in your world around how we can protect older Vermonters. And then anything else you'd like to add to have a discussion here. So again, thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you for having me. This issue has been really important to us, of course, but as Vermont ages, it becomes more and more important. It affects more and more people, and our office plays so many different roles. And I don't think people realize that. So I welcome the opportunity to talk about this and say hello to everybody who's on the Zoom. So first I'm glad I wrote this down because I don't want to overlook. Thank you for all the work you're doing to advance the interests of older Vermonters. And let me begin by saying that, but I wanted to talk a little bit about what our office does. So first, I want to say that 1 in 10 Americans are estimated to experience some form of elder abuse, and that includes financial exploitation. And we also want to note that financial exploitation and physical neglect and abuse often go together. So we always have that awareness. And elder financial exploitation takes many forms. It could be straight up theft by caregivers. It could be scams perpetrated over the phone, the internet, texting, or it could be a kind of sham business that's exploiting elder Vermonters. I'm thinking things like medical products that are geared towards elder Vermonters, like dental products and things like that. But let me say all the different hats that we wear when it comes to this. So the first is our Medicaid fraud and residential abuse unit that is housed in our criminal division. It criminally prosecutes paid caregivers who abuse, neglect, or financially exploit Vermonters who qualify as vulnerable adults. So we have investigators, paralegal, lawyers who do that work, and we call it MFRAU, Medicaid Fraud Unit. And they're located in this building upstairs. I was about to go like this because normally when we're in the State House, but no, just upstairs, there they are. The next is our Human Services Division. Our Human Services Division is a division where we have lawyers embedded in a variety of it's the Agency of Human Services, a variety of the departments at AHS. So one of the things we do, we go to court to seek restraining orders against individuals who abuse, neglect, or financially exploit vulnerable adults, or to terminate guardianships where guardians abuse, neglect, or financially exploit a vulnerable adult that they're taking care of. Next is our Consumer Protection Unit, and I think everyone's really familiar with that unit. We end up talking about it a lot next door. We civilly prosecute businesses that financially exploit older Vermonters, from medical devices companies to long-term care facilities. Not just exploit, but when they're misleading, that's a form of exploitation under the Consumer Protection Act. Our Consumer Assistance Program is part of our consumer arena. That is located at the University of Vermont, a partnership between our office and UVM, and it tracks scams. It issues public scam alerts when new scams hit the state. It helps older scam victims recover lost funds where possible. And we also partner with AARP pretty regularly to provide education. I've been Attorney General for a year. I've already been to 2 scam jams, talk about scams. And you're probably wondering, well, why scams? Scammers target elder Vermonters, and that's sort of well known, and for a few reasons. One is you are vulnerable to a scam if you are a person who is lonely, because you're more apt to be like, oh, someone's calling me, yay. So they are targeting elders for that reason. Elders also are believed to be less tech savvy, and so scammers think they can exploit that weakness, the perceived weakness that supposedly they have. So we always are on the lookout for those vulnerable Vermonters who might find themselves in the position of being scammed. And finally, we created in the Attorney General's office the Elder Protection Initiative, EPI, which gets all of the lawyers in all those different divisions together to kind of roundtable some of the work that's being done, some of the concerns that we have, and really using as a force multiplier all of our expertise in all these different divisions to try to make gains in protecting elder Vermonters. I'll give you a couple of examples of recent work that they have done. And I'm happy to provide this to you as well. We created a guide for victims of elder abuse, including financial exploitations, that explains what their options are, both inside and outside of government. How can they report the abuse and that kind of thing. We also developed a training for law enforcement on elder abuse and financial exploitation, how to investigate it. This included the form that a law enforcement officer will fill out. The Vermont Police Academy and Vermont State Police provide this training to each new generation of officers. We're really proud of that. Elder abuse is not necessarily obvious, but I want to share with you a chilling story. When I lived in New York City, I volunteered with an organization, and one of our focuses was elder abuse and financial abuse especially. And a woman attorney told us the story of how she just had her gut instinct that this very nice older woman she was helping was being abused financially, and decided that she needed to go to her apartment. They always met at the senior center. She said, I need to go to her apartment. And when she knocked on the door, this literally like makes the hair on my arm stand up. The very nice woman opened the door, and through the crack in the door, she could see the woman's nephew, who she believed had been abusing her, like staring at her through the door. And when she entered the apartment, it was like hoarding, chaos, bankers boxes. And it was like all was revealed because she just followed her gut instinct. Unfortunately, we do hear some stories like that and do our part to try to, educate, support, and prosecute if necessary, and do all the work that I've just relayed. So that's really the overview. I'm happy to answer any questions, but and also as things come up, remember that we do that work and we're here to serve. So let us know if we can be supportive in any way as things go forward.
Yeah, it's great to hear all of the cross discussions that are happening between law enforcement and all of the different agencies to work together. So I appreciate that. Does anyone have any questions or?
I have a question, actually. So I'm a state representative, and I have a constituent who contacted me a couple of weeks ago who was the victim of a very substantial scam. She's a retired librarian, and it was one of those that ended up, somebody talked her into transferring funds out of her bank account, and it ended up being $140,000 out of her retirement, and she is retired. So this was a huge amount of money that she no longer has to support her needs. But she doesn't seem to think it's possible to get that back. But an additional pain that she contacted me about was that apparently she's going to be walloped with a giant tax bill because all these funds came out, which she didn't get, but apparently some fees are associated when you withdraw them. And so her question was, what could we do for people in my situation so they don't get doubly punished? Their money is stolen, and then they need to pay money they don't have on money that they, that was taken from them. So do you have any thoughts about that? I mean, I was told by somebody else that it might be more of a federal issue because it involved the IRS, but
well, it's also such a very large amount of money. But I would definitely encourage her to call the Consumer Assistance Program.
Yeah.
1-800-649-2424. I like to joke I have my tattoo.
Is that going to be in your email?
Yes, we'll make sure
All right,
that's
great.
included in the notes.
And the other thing is she should call the Department of Taxes or the IRS.
I gave her that information,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure if she's ever heard back.
They're very used to, I remember the IRS scam. That was like the hottest scam for a few years. They are very familiar with scams. And in fact, if you ever have your identity stolen, they actually have a form that you should fill out at the IRS. So yeah, there are steps that she can take to try to protect herself. I don't know a lot of the details of what that might look like in the tax department, but we can definitely, they will at the Consumer Assistance Program and can give her support and help. She should definitely call.
Okay.
I was going to say something else about that. So the other thing that I can't stop myself from saying to you is that there are certain ways of paying for things that have consumer protection built in. Credit cards. Someone steals your credit card, you can do a chargeback. There's so many protections with credit cards. There are other ways of paying for things that you get, there's very little or zero. Cryptocurrency, cash, gift cards,
Venmo.
even wire transfer, even Venmo. Once I Venmoed someone who had the exact same name, it was like $18. So I was like, all right, if I don't get this back, and they gave me they retransferred, the person wouldn't give me back, and they intervened. So Venmo, maybe there's hope there, maybe. Wire transfers, you usually have a little bit of time. Just transferring money, obviously, that's not really paying for things. But I just wanted to say that because I have thought about that as I've over the years learned more and more about scams and how, paying for something with a credit card is a way of protecting yourself. So I choose to use a credit card for most of my purchases because I know that there are options for me as a consumer that aren't available. And that's another reason why, don't get me started on cryptocurrency. And Chris, I don't know how you feel about cryptocurrency. So I feel, I don't know if you hate it or love it in the banker world, but oh my gosh, it's just like such a pet peeve because we, a couple of years ago, we kind of tallied our largest losses in scams at the Consumer Assistance Program, and half of them were crypto. And I remember thinking, but of course, because there's no consumer protection baked into the cryptocurrency, that's by design. That's why it's liked, is because there's no, it's simple. But there are no protections. So if you lose your money, it's gone. The money is gone.
Sheriff Marco, you had a question?
Hi, good to see you.
I see you. One thing as we brainstorm here, how to help the public out there, it's pretty hard once somebody gets scammed to navigate that alone if they don't have family and everything.
Yeah.
And you've got your consumer assistance program here, you've got AARP. But I'm wondering if we should put together a list of advocates that will take a case with somebody, whoever it is, maybe it's a combination of everybody, to help people navigate through situations like that.
I truly believe that person exists at the Consumer Assistance Program. That's
How
why
many
they're
people?
there. Well, that's why it's at UVM. So we have like 6 or 7 full-time folks who are there, including a grad assistant who is 20 hours a week. Everyone else is full-time. And then there was a whole class of students, like 15 people who I just met with them on Monday, I think. And they take the class and they offer support in case management with oversight from all of the other folks, almost all of whom have master's degrees or are pursuing a master's degree now. So they are aces about this stuff.
Does it have to be a chargeable crime? For them?
No. In fact, most crimes would get referred to law enforcement.
Right.
So they are incredibly knowledgeable. I was very humbling when I was located there after I'd been at the AG's office for like 5 months. They said, can you go help at the Consumer Assistance Program doing business stuff? Because I'm obsessed with small businesses. Sure, no problem. I showed up and I was like, wow, these people aren't even lawyers and they know so much about navigating state government, consumer law. It's honestly really impressive. So I'm a CAP super fan, and I definitely would encourage, if anyone has a problem, give them a call. And they're really compassionate too. I've just seen them. It's really upsetting. It can be embarrassing when you get scammed, and I've just seen them at work and they're really impressive. So
That number one more time.
1-800-649-2424.
Thank you.
Good. I see a question here and then we'll wrap up. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Charlie, go ahead.
Yes, I will try to be brief. A woman in my building is Russian. She's an older Russian lady and she knows very little English. There are 20 languages spoken in this building of 65 apartments. She didn't know who to ask, but for an entire year, she had been preyed upon by someone who said, we're lobbying for you in Congress. You don't want them to cut Medicaid. You don't want them to cut Social Security, right? So give us all the money you can afford and we will fight for you in court. And essentially they kept the money. They kept about half the money. The fellow who ran the agency made $150,000 a year, and all of the money went into sending out more junk mail.
Yeah.
They made it all old world beautiful, and they made it look legitimate. And they said, if you want to keep Social Security, send us money. And for some reason, somebody told her, ask Charlie, he'll know what's going on. And I'm empathetic to everybody here, and I helped her stop sending money. She had just felt compelled, and she hadn't asked anybody about it. She just took their word for it, that the money would help save Medicare and Social Security.
Well, good for you. And Charlie, I also, since you have so many spoken languages, the Consumer Assistance Program has interpretation services. So if you ever have a neighbor who needs help, and they don't speak English as a first language or they struggle, just know that too.
That's
Good.
great.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Great caucus today, talking about this issue. Next week, I will have, I'm hoping to have the amazing topic of the FY25 Dale budget. So we'll be diving into some numbers hopefully next week. So thank you, everybody, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks.